Hello YouTube, Goddard Radio Moscow here again with another beer review for you as is usual. For this one we are going to continue on with the series of Scottish beer reviews I've been doing for you. So this is review number 22 in that series out of about 34 I believe we're going to do. But for this one we are going to return to Clackmannanshire, which is my home county in Scotland, and we're going to visit one of the two breweries there. I've already done a Harvesting review in this series, so we're going to do the other Clackmannanshire brewery, and that is the Williams Brothers Brewery, and this guy is the Profanity Stout. Meant to be a really beautiful beer, this one, but I've never ever tried this one. Tried quite a few of their things and reviewed a couple of them for you, but this is my first encounter with one of their stout beers, and I think this might actually be the first of their darker beers that I'm reviewing for you on my channel, so I hope you enjoy the review. But as is usual with my beer reviews then, I'll take you through a very brief history of the brewery. It is quite short for this one, but if you don't want to stick with me for that, then feel free to move forward into the video just a few minutes and you will get straight to the tasting section. The brewery website is in the video description for you below, along with a link to my other Williams Brothers beer reviews, so check those out if you're interested. So anyway, this company started out as the family-owned Glenbrew home brewing shop in Glasgow, and their first ale was actually inspired by a 17th century Gaelic recipe for Freya Heather ale, and this is actually the oldest type of ale that's still brewed in the world today, and it's named after the Celtic mythological hero of the same name. Now in 1988, a woman of Gaelic descent came into their brew shop in Glasgow with an English translation of this old Gaelic recipe, and she wanted to basically create a batch of this to share with her family, and Bruce Williams agreed to do this, if he could have the recipe, he basically agreed to help her brew this batch of beer. So the small batch of only 5 barrels was produced in Taynolt railway station in Argyll and Bute, and the following year the demand had really increased dramatically, so they decided that they really kind of had to upscale their production and things like that. But Scott Williams actually joined his brother Bruce at this point, and they began to develop other historic recipes which are still in the range today. This includes the Groatsit, which is a gooseberry wheat ale, Kelpie, which is a seaweed ale, and also Eboloum, which is an elderberry black ale, Alloa, which is a Scots pine ale, and these 4 recipes were produced originally at the Craigmill Brewery in Straven between 1998 and 2004. But in 2004 they relocated to their current location at the 4th brewery in Kellybank in Alloa, and this was when they adopted the name Williams Brothers, and 25 new recipes at least have been developed since they've moved to this site, and they're now regarded as one of Scotland's most prolific brewing companies. And oddly enough though, they are actually one of they're the last brewery in the old brewing capital of Scotland. Where I'm from in Scotland, Clackmannanshire is where a lot of the whisky comes to sit and be matured in the bonds. They say here that in Clackmannanshire the whisky that's in this county is worth more than the gold that's in Fort Knox. I'm not sure how true that is, but there's a hell of a lot of whisky, and if you walk around you see these you see a lot of these kind of, they're almost like army base buildings actually, and you just see them, they're just hangars basically where all these whisky barrels sit to mature over I think the next 20 years or something like that. They'll all be there, but this has been going on for hundreds of years, and there used to be a lot of breweries in Alloa as well. My pub that I like to drink in Alloa is in fact called the Old Brewery, and it's the kind of visitor centre part of it. They knocked all the brewing hall and everything down, but it's quite a shame, but they could have turned it into some nice apartments or something like that. But the pub I drink in, the Old Brewery, is the little visitors hall of this, and it's a very nice pub, so I would recommend have a little look at Alloa if you do get the chance to visit Scotland, those of you who watch my reviews in America and Canada and things like that. But we'll move on to the tasting of this beer itself now. As I say, this is meant to be a very nice one actually, and it's a 7% stout, and it's malted with Maris Otter, oats, roasted barley, dark crystal and malted wheat, and also some chocolate malt as well. And the hop bill in this one is Nelson Sauvin, First Gold, Centennial and also Amarillo. I've heard that it's meant to be quite a nice kind of hoppy stout there. But I'll just bring up the camera and let you have a little look at this one. 7% on the Richter scale, as I said. It's quite nicely presented, this. It's a bit different from the other artwork that you normally get from Williams Brothers, but there you can see quite clearly this is the kind of Celtic crest that is the brewery crest of the Williams Brothers Brewery. You can see 330ml bottle, 7% ABV. I'll just read the little spiel that's on the side of this one. It says, Profanity Stout is the first in the Williams Brothers Chapeau series, in which we celebrate the skills of amateur brewers whose beer we think are exceptional and should be made available to the wider audience. With Profanity Stout we doff our caps to Peter and Craig, the balls to the wall brewing duo who developed this recipe as students on the brewing course at Edinburgh's Heriot Watt University. This beer is a blend of rich coffee and intensely fruity hop aromas on a base of a fully velvety malty mouthfeel. So I didn't realise they were doing that actually. They were kind of letting people brew their own beer, and then they would bring them into the into the brewery. That's very, very cool actually. You can just see there's Bruce Williams and Andrew Williams, I think it is, on the little pattern there. It looks very, very nice, and it's got finish on it as well. I'm sure that is finished Si Salta Ora or something. Quite an interesting language finish, definitely. But yeah, so this is the second of my 2 reviews from one of my local breweries here in Clackmannanshire for this series. So let's get on with it. 7% stout, Profanity Stout from Williams Brothers in Alloa. As you can see, a nice kind of smoky opening there. Let's just get this guy out and into the glass. Now, Williams Brothers really are a fantastic brewery. Those of you who are watching my reviews from Australia, New Zealand, Canada, America, all of these sorts of places, I'm sure you'll be able to get some of these beers now, because they're a very prolific brewery and they're quite well respected, I guess, in craft beer circles, and they're producing some really, really excellent stuff. So let's have a look at this beer and then we'll get on with the tasting. So I'll just bring up the light and let you have a little look at this guy. As you can see, it's poured a really nice dark rosewood ebony colour. I say rosewood because it's got a little bit of a kind of ruby tinge around it, and it's got a very small kind of beige tan frothy head on this one. That's just kind of fading away to a very thin foamy layer now, but it looks very, very nice. There's not much in the way of carbonation visible going up to the underside of that beer, just a little few bubbles going up there, but it looks very, very nice, and I'm sure it will be because it's a Williams Brothers beer. So let's give it a smell. You can see what they mean about the fruity aromas you get from this one. That kind of immediately stands out. There's definitely a bit of a kind of grapefruity character in this one. You can pick that out right away, but it's got a big kind of chocolatey malt nose on it. Nice kind of, yeah, as I say, a nice kind of sweet chocolatey malt on this one. It's got a slightly roasted aroma and some coffee in there as well. Some nice aromatic hoppy character. Definitely you've got some really nice kind of fruity and piney resin flavours in there, aromas, sorry, in there too. It's a very interesting one. I think this was one that my friend Fraser actually gave me for Christmas in a little pack or something like that. I'm not sure why he picked out this one for me, but it's meant to be a very, very nice beer, so thank you to Fraser for giving me this one. But yeah, a very, very nice smelling beer. A lot of nice sweet chocolatey malt, as I say, slightly roasted, some coffee kind of bitter character in there too, but a lot of nice aromatic and hoppy fruity character. I think there's a good bit of grapefruit in there. And you can just, if you breathe it in a little bit more deeply, you can pick up the sort of pine resins too. So let's give it a taste. The Profanity Stout from Williams Brothers in Alloa. That's a really, really nice beer. The first impression of it is that it's very light for a stout, but you immediately get why when you can pick up the hoppy tastes in this one quite easily. So immediately the beer comes in and it has a very sort of kind of nice kind of slightly grapefruity fruity character. There's quite a bit of kind of grassy and aromatic things coming out there too, a bit of pine resin. It's very, very kind of fruity on the opening, I should say, and it's very light, and then that kind of coffee bitter character, it just kind of builds itself up actually. Usually I would always expect a stout to be a very, very kind of creamy beer, but maybe that's because most of the ones I've tried have been on cask rather than in bottle. But this is a very, very light stout, which is quite nice. It's quite an easy drinking one, this. I can see why they put it in a 330 bottle actually, because it would be, I always find stouts quite hard to session, if that makes sense, but this one is a very, very light one. It's got a fairly kind of heavier alcohol content on it though, which is very good, and it's one that you can drink quite easily, which I always like when it comes to stouts. So yeah, the taste, as I say, it starts up with a really nice kind of fruity wet mouthfeel, a lot of kind of dark fruits in there. Maybe there is a little teeny bit of grapefruit in there, but it's more like raisins, figs, that kind of thing that comes out at the start of the beer. You've got that nice kind of sweet chocolatey malt that complements that too, and then the kind of roasted coffee elements to the beer just build themselves at the back edges of the tongue. They just build up as you kind of gradually move into the aftertaste, which is very, very nice there. And it's kind of, it does have a little bit of a kind of grainy or cereally feel mixed in with that as well. You can pick that up if you're used to drinking stouts, and I do think there is a kind of just a little bit of cereal and spicy character in this one. Yeah, I would stick with that. There's definitely a little bit of spice character comes out just at the front of the tongue there, but that's where the fruit's kind of resonating a little bit. And it might well be that there is pine resin flavour to this one, and I think the spice and pine resin flavour are kind of mixing together really quite well, and you've got that nice kind of fresh, slightly aromatic feel just around the edge of the tongue. It's a very, very nicely done beer, this. I can see why in this showpiece series that they were wanting to bring these beers out, because this is beautiful, and if this is two home brewers that have done this, I mean, hats off to them. Very, very nice beer. It's absolutely beautiful. I mean, I can see why a lot of people rate this beer. It has very, very high ratings on Beer Advocate and ratebeer.com. Beautiful, beautiful beer. Yeah. So in terms of the mouthfeel with this one, I would say it's got a nice kind of light mouthfeel to it. It's quite mid-bodied, I would say, but it's pushing light to mid-bodied. Obviously with a stout, as I say, you expect it to be a little bit thicker and creamier, but that's not to say that this one lacks in flavour at all. The carbonation of it is quite low. There is just a little bit, which maybe helps bring out the kind of hoppier flavours of the beer. But at the start it's very, very juicy, I should say. There's a very kind of juicy mouthfeel to it at the start. Then it gradually builds. The dry character from the kind of the sort of the roasted malts and the earthy kind of hop character comes out a little bit more. That's when it starts to get drier, and it does get drier into the aftertaste. It's almost got a slightly kind of syrupy mouthfeel to it as well. It's a little bit kind of oily at the same time, if that makes sense. But the important thing is that the mouthfeel really does suit the kind of characteristics and flavour that the beer has. So overall, I mean, this is a very, very beautiful beer, and if you are into your darker beers and you're sort of getting familiar with Williams Brothers, I would recommend that you try this beer. In terms of like maybe food pairings and stuff, it's definitely one that you want to have with some kind of mint chocolate or something like that. I think this beer would be absolutely beautiful with that, or some ice cream, something like that, vanilla ice cream, chocolate sauce, that kind of thing that this would go with. Maybe even some kind of roast beef and stuff like that, roast beef steaks and stuff like that. A very, very nice beer that would go with that, actually. So anyway, overall, this is a beautiful, beautiful beer. If you are kind of getting familiar with Scottish craft beer and you're interested in Williams Brothers, this is one that I would highly recommend, although they do have about another 30 or so beers, and I don't think you're going to be disappointed with any of them if you try them. It's been cool to do another Williams Brothers beer for this Scottish Beer Month. I hope you've enjoyed the review. As always, please comment in the section below and let me know your own thoughts on this beer. Always interesting to have input to the channel, and please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. I will be doing more Williams Brothers beer reviews when I return home from Australia. Cheers.